By Bill Barrow and WEISSERT, Associated Press. Wilmington, Del. Joe Biden faces the most intense test yet of his pledge to be a calming, unifying leader for a divided nation when he travels Thursday to Kenosha, Wisconsin, a city now at the center of America's election year reckoning with systemic racism. The Democratic presidential nominee, traveling 2 days after President Donald Trump visited the same city, plans to meet with family of Jacob Blake, who remains hospitalized after being shot 7 times in the back by a white police officer as authorities tried to arrest him. Biden also plans a community discussion with business figures, civic leaders and law enforcement officials. "This is about making sure that we move forward," Biden told reporters Wednesday. He added that he's not going to tell Kenosha what they have to do, but instead encourage a community to talk about what has to be done. 2 months before Election Day, the trip presents Biden both opportunity and risks, testing his long-standing promise that he can unify the country and find consensus even where it's not readily apparent. The approach is an intentional contrast with Trump, who thrives on conflict. But the distinction has sharpened over a summer of nationwide protests, most peaceful, but some of them, as in Kenosha, turned violent and destructive. Biden is a white man propelled to the Democratic nomination by black voters. Since the May 25 death of George Floyd, a black man killed by a white Minneapolis police officer, Biden has called for an overhaul of U.S. policing and embraced a national conversation on racism. The significance of the moment was a factor in Biden selecting California Senator Kamala Harris as the first black woman to join a major party presidential ticket. Trump, meanwhile, has countered with sweeping condemnations of protesters, an absolute defense of law enforcement and denials that Americans with black and brown skin face barriers that whites do not, moves aimed at his overwhelmingly white political base. The president pressed his "law and order" mantra during his own Kenosha trip Tuesday. He toured damaged buildings and discussed ways to quell unrest with law enforcement officials. Trump was greeted by supporters who occasionally mixed with, and yelled at, Black Lives Matter organizers. "These are not acts of peaceful protest but, really, domestic terror," Trump said. Despite repeated questions from reporters, the president refused to address racism in the country or its police departments. Instead, he asserted anew that a Biden presidency would bring riots and destruction to American cities. Trump falsely claims that Biden backs violent protests and activists' calls to defund the police. Bill Stepien, Trump's campaign manager, said Biden's visit to Kenosha was inappropriate. The president was there earlier in the week as the President of the United States.